All right, America. Here's the problem. Entitlements. This is social spending. In 1950, spending on social services by the U.S. government was 33.4% of total federal government expenditures. Today, it is 61.3%. Entitlements are causing us to go broke. If you look here, this is a share of total spending. If you look at this, here we have defense 20%, Social Security 19%, Medicaid 8, or Medicare 13, Medicaid 8. This is unsustainable. In less than 6 years, the federal government will be paying out more in Social Security benefits than the taxes that it takes in to fund it. Our Social Security Administration is getting $788 billion in fiscal year 2011. That breaks out to $6,500 per U.S. household. You write a check for that? Can you write a check for that? Because that's what we're doing. Now, let's look how to fix this problem, and we have a couple of guests with us. First of all is Chris Edwards. He's the director of tax policy studies at the Cato Institute and author of Downsizing the Federal Government. We've been using kind of his blueprints here just to get us started this week. And Stephen Dubner, he is the author of Super Freakonomics, and a guy who I really respect because he thinks out of the box, and I think that is the main thing, is to imagine a world that doesn't look like this one. So, Chris, let me start with you. First, where should we even begin on this?
Well, Social Security is going bankrupt, and young people are right to be concerned that Social Security won't be there for them when they retire. A couple decades down the road, the government won't be able to pay the bills of people retiring. So what do we do about that? We have to move to a system of private Social Security accounts like 24 other countries around the world have. That will give individuals control over their own retirement future.
Okay, here's a problem with that, because they'll say 401ks. That's private, and everybody would have lost half of their retirement and everything else. I mean, everybody's looking for a guarantee, and the second thing is that doesn't end it.
I think that there's a lot less market risk than there is government risk. The current system, people are trusting politicians to pay those benefits, and frankly, the money isn't going to be there when they retire. Over the long term, over a person's working lifetime of 40 years, investing in equities and bonds is very safe. And the countries that have privatized have very high returns on their Social Security private accounts, like Chile and Australia.
I'll tell you, people who are investing in the market, it just went up yesterday. What is it, 11,000? Went up yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, what you said is true about the 401k. If you'd been investing for, let's say, 8 years, and then the recession happened, the stock market meltdown happened, and you sold in the middle of it, and you haven't bought back, you lost 40, 50, 60%.
Right. And people who are investing now, you're going to lose it again.
Well,
You will.
Here's one problem with looking at the economy in the long run, or honestly, you're looking at our government in the long run.
Yeah.
Every time we look at a historic event or a series of them, every time we look at the stock market, every time we look at the macro economy, we say, well, when this happened, then it caused that. We always want to put cause and effect together. That's our nature as human beings. The problem is we've got a sample set of one. We've got one economy we're looking at. We've got one history we're looking at. So I don't think it's so easy to say. These answers aren't so easy. If there were, you wouldn't be wrestling with them all week. Yeah. But I don't think that the only correct answer is to say, hey, the market can't help us solve, because as Chris has said,
I'm not saying the market. No, I'm not saying that the market can't. I agree with you.
But I'm putting not the free market, the stock market.
Yeah. I agree with you that that's a better bet than the federal government, because we ain't getting anything. Even I knew that.
If nothing else, the people who own the accounts can decide what they do with the accounts.
Right.
And just think about the private sector and stock investment these days. When you invest in the stock market like the S&P 500, you're essentially investing in growth in the whole global world economy. So, over decades, the world economy is going to grow, private accounts will grow, and the return, again, in Chile and Argentina is very high.
So, how do you convince people to do this without the emergency?
Well, what you do with Social Security, you give them a voluntary choice. For old folks who are retired, you don't touch their benefits at all. For young people under, say, 55, you say you have a voluntary choice. Stay in the current system that's going bankrupt, and you have to trust the politicians, and you have no legal right to your benefit, or go to private accounts, put money in Fidelity, invest it there for decades, watch it grow. That's the choice we give to young people.
Okay, back in just a second. When we... This week, a beginning of a plan for America. Today, how to cut Social Security and Medicare. A beginning idea as laid out by Chris Edwards from Cato. And he has, for Social Security, the system is going bankrupt. He has his solutions. Private savings, right? More security. What's that mean?
Individuals have more security owning a private account. On the current Social Security system, you have no legal right to benefit, and Congress can cut benefits anytime it wants.
And Chile, Australia, that's a good example. We should model ourselves after them.
Absolutely. Both systems have been in place for a couple decades. You put about 10% of your money into private accounts, and it's...
See, my problem is this goes against everything these guys stood for. This is progressive light. I mean, I don't want... Here's my solution. You're 55 years old to 62, maybe you get 40%. I mean, I just made this up on the spot. 62 plus, okay, we're going to take care of you because you know what? It's too, you know, you're turning a ship. But if you're below 54, and this includes me, you get nothing. You get nothing. And then we go back to, again, this is progressive light, but here's my compromise. We'll do it to the life expectancy, just like it was, you know, when it started. And we slave it to the life expectancy. As the life expectancy goes up, so does the retirement age. Right. I mean, if you're Freakonomics, man. I mean,
I'm ready to retire now. I can't. I'd like to.
I know, but I mean, you know, in another 25 years, our life expectancy could be, well, we'd be retiring. It'd be like retiring when we're 35.
Here's the problem with all these systems. Whether you're looking at Social Security, whether you're looking at electoral politics, healthcare, education, we inherit these systems, right, that have evolved over years and years, and we like to think that they evolved rationally.
They didn't.
They're totally chaotic. The problem is, then we try to solve the problems rationally by untangling them, and we can't. They've been baked into a big mess.
So how is it not reasonable? I called a good friend of mine, John Huntsman Sr. He's industrialist and guy who invented the, you know, plastic fork and spoon and styrofoam cup. I mean, he's given America so much. He's a philanthropist now. He pays 150% in income tax. He pays 50% in income tax and gives away his income. He has to pay a higher rate of income tax because in this country, if you give away 100%, they charge you 50% because something must be up. Okay, so he's an amazing man. He told me, I called him a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "Glenn, you got a zero-based budget. You can't look at this, but you want to fix this country, you have to go at zero because otherwise you're dragging all the bones from 30 years that nobody even understands anymore."
I think that's why exercises like this are really helpful. Like, you're probably not going to solve many problems or any problems in a week.
Yeah.
But I think what's important is people need to learn to think about problems differently. We get fed so much information. We like to think that it's just tinkering around the edges, it's going to solve it. But I like to do these thought experiments. Take a situation, pretend you're coming to it new. Here's my favorite one. Pretend that neither alcohol nor marijuana existed until today. Somehow civilization got to this point with neither, which is practically impossible.
Yes.
They're both discovered. How are they both regulated and distributed and sold? Probably not the way they are today, that alcohol would be legal everywhere and marijuana would be illegal everywhere in this country, right?
Right.
We get the systems we inherit because that's the way they are, but then to try to untangle them like this one, I think you need to kind of start by thinking over.
But don't you think, I was going to say, did you see the episode yesterday? Is the mutually assured economic destruction still on the backside of this chalkboard? Yes. It is? Can we flip this chalkboard over?
This is a risk on live TV. You're going to flip it. You don't know who's been drawing on the back of that blackboard.
Yesterday I talked about this. This is the way we solved, one way we solved nuclear Holocaust. It was mutually assured destruction.
Right.
And the idea was that it wasn't just that we would vaporize each other.
Yeah.
No, it's not there. It wasn't that we would just vaporize each other, but we would also tie our economies together.
Yeah.
And so you would have limited war. You wouldn't have world war anymore. Well, I mean, we're all going down together. The system's going to reset. Is there a way to, before you get there, to be able to make the case to people, hey, we need to do something dramatic to spit ourselves out of that system so we will survive?
I think